Cheers to the Duarte family. My sister said, raising her crystal glass, her voice sweet as poison, except for Isabel failure, who only has money. Laughter rippled through the table. My parents joined in, heads nodding as if that sentence had been rehearsed like a punchline in a family joke where I was always the joke. I smiled. Then I lifted my own glass, my voice low but steady, to the failure, who will stop paying for your wedding. Silence fell like shattered glass. That night didn't come out of nowhere. It was the final scene in a play I didn't audition for but kept financing. I was done playing the sponsor to a family that never saw me as one of them. They thought I'd always stay silent, but that toast that was the beginning of everything unraveling. My name is Elena Duarte. I'm 36 years old, CEO of a thriving event planning firm in Austin. My company has organized galas for politicians, charity auctions for celebrities, even weddings for families far wealthier than mine could ever dream of becoming. I've been featured in 3 magazines and recently made the regional 40 Under 40 list. But at home, I'm not Elena, the self-made woman. I'm just the one with money. My parents never said it directly. No, that would require honesty. Instead, they smiled politely at my accomplishments, then pivoted to Sophia's latest boyfriend or Lucas's new gym routine. They never came to my opening night when I launched my flagship office. But they made sure I paid for Sophia's business school tuition because she just needs a head start. Ballyou already made it. It started small. A utility bill here, a short-term loan when Dad's car broke down. The promises were always the same. We'll pay you back next month, sweetie, but next month never came. And I didn't push because I thought giving meant love. When Sophia turned 23 and decided to launch a home decor business, I was the one who covered the startup cost. 20. Zero wired without question. It folded within 6 months. No one said thank you, not once. It became a routine, stepping in quietly every time something cracked in the Duarte household. My mom called it support. I called it survival because part of me still hoped that maybe if I gave enough, they'd see me not just the checkbook, me, but they never did. To them, I was the fallback fund, the safety net, a wallet that didn't talk back. Even when I bought my own house, 3-bedroom ocean view, fully paid off, they barely blinked. My father walked through the door, once nodded and said, "You should really get curtains for those windows." That's who I was to them. A provider, a background figure, never the one worth toasting. And yet, I kept showing up. Birthdays, holidays, family barbecues, carrying wine gifts and receipts. I convinced myself I belonged. That deep down, they were proud of me in their own way, that maybe the love was just quiet. Then came the engagement. Marina and Adrian, a glossy ring, a lavish plan, and a dozen texts from my mother starting with, "Sweetheart, I was wondering if you could help with." They didn't even ask. They expected. And I said, yes. Again, I should have known the price would be higher this time, not just financially, but emotionally. And the final payment was due at that dinner table. They never called it using me. They called it trust. We just trust you so much with these things, Elena. You've always had a better head for money than any of us. You're so lucky you actually enjoy working. It sounded flattering, almost empowering, as if my independence was some magical personality trait they admired, as if the constant financial requests weren't withdrawals but compliments. Sophia once joked, "You're like the family's secret angel investor." Everyone laughed, including me. But angels don't feel drained and investors usually get returns. I began noticing a pattern. Every favor was wrapped in an emotional package. When Dad's dental surgery cost $120, Mom called crying, saying his health depended on it. When Sophia wanted to rebrand her failed business as a wedding design studio, she said, "If you don't believe in me, who else will?" When Lucas got into a car accident, they asked me to just help him get back on his feet. Even though he'd already totaled 2 other cars I helped pay for, each plea came with guilt and sugar like a bitter pill rolled in honey. They never asked if I could help, only when the language was always the same. "This will be the last time. You're the only one we can count on. Marina really needs this. She's not as strong as you." Some days I wondered if they even remembered I had bills, too. I had a mortgage once before I sold that property to get the firm through the pandemic. I had employees whose livelihoods depended on me meeting payroll. I had anxiety exhaustion and migraines that no one at home asked about. But when Sophia got accepted to the wedding planning certification course in New York, my mother called me like it was already decided. "Elena, she needs to go. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance." I told her you'd be thrilled to support her. Thrilled. That word sat in my throat like vinegar. Still, I wired the $8,700 tuition and another $2,000, $0 for flights, hotels, and spending money. I even shipped her a brand new laptop with her initials engraved. The thank you. I got a blurry selfie of her holding the laptop captioned, "Got it." And 2 weeks later, a Venmo request for cocktail outfits needed for client networking. The thing is, it wasn't just the money. It was the way they made me feel responsible for their dreams, guilty for saying no and invisible when I said yes. Like my value stopped the moment I stopped giving. But I didn't stoop. At least not yet. The engagement dinner was next. I should have felt excited. Instead, I felt like I was buying my seat at a table I was never really invited to. I didn't know it then, but I was approaching the edge. And someone was about to push me. The engagement dinner was meant to impress. That was the entire point, not to celebrate Sophia and Adrian, but to perform perfection. My mother had gone into full production mode weeks earlier. She texted me spreadsheets, Pinterest boards, vendor options. I didn't remember agreeing to plan the event, but somehow I was footing the bill and managing logistics. "This dinner matters," she said. "Adrian's family is old money. We can't look like amateurs." Every suggestion I made was gently overruled. The florist I recommended was too minimalist. The chef I preferred didn't do traditional dishes. Instead, Mom picked a private chef from Beverly Hills and a florist who charged triple, but understood the aesthetic. Both sent their invoices to me. The dinner was held at my parents' home, a Spanish-style house in Lakeway. They'd had the patio resurfaced. New lighting, imported linens, all paid through my business card. I watched it unfold like I was watching someone else's event. Every detail executed to perfection. Every moment curated to be admired. Candles flickered against crystal. Classical music floated from hidden speakers and servers in white gloves, past hors made from ingredients I couldn't pronounce. And through it all, not a single person mentioned my name. Sophia floated from table to table, glowing in a champagne silk dress. "You look like a Vogue bride," one aunt gushed. "Oh, this." She smiled. "It's a sample piece from a boutique in Milan." She didn't mention it was a boutique I had discovered her that I'd covered the rush tailoring fees. Adrian, handsome and polished, talked about his family's vineyard. His father spoke about legacy. His mother complimented the lighting and asked which designer had styled the table. My mother, sipping wine I imported from Napa, gave a tight smile. My daughters helped a bit, helped as if I had dropped off a bag of ice or arranged chairs. I sat quietly at the far end of the long table, wearing a tailored navy dress I'd bought in a last-minute panic, hoping to look elegant but not attention-seeking. I poured wine. I answered polite questions. I smiled when prompted, but inside I felt like a ghost haunting my own generosity. Every toast, every laugh, every compliment passed through me like I wasn't even there. I realized that my presence was required but not acknowledged. My role was logistical, not emotional, necessary but never appreciated. And yet I stayed. I stayed because Sophia was my sister. Because I believed for years that family came before pride. Because I thought if I just gave a little more, they might finally see me. I didn't know then that they did see me. Just not as a daughter, not as a sister, as a bank. And banks don't get thanked. They get used until the account runs dry. 3 days before the engagement dinner, my mother called me in the middle of a client meeting. I let it go to voicemail, but the message came through anyway. "Elena, we need to upgrade the champagne. Adrian's parents are used to vintage. I told the distributor you'd handle the invoice. No, can you? Just you will." That same night, Sophia texted me a photo of a diamond-encrusted hairpiece. "Marina, this would look stunning for the dinner. 9:40 though, too much. Before I could even type a response, she followed up. Sophia, I told Mom you'd cover it if it looked perfect. That was the moment something inside me cracked. It wasn't the money, I could afford it, I'd always afforded it. It was the assumption, the unspoken arrogant certainty that my wallet belonged to them, that my success was just another branch on the family tree for everyone else to climb. That night, I sat at my kitchen counter with my laptop open and my banking app glowing, the numbers dancing like ghosts. Over the past 12 months, I had paid for Sophia's design classes, Adrian's welcome dinner, my parents' new HVAC system, 3 vacations I wasn't invited on, a reupholstered set of dining chairs for ambiance. I stared at the grand total over 70. I remembered every excuse they gave, every promise to pay me back, every guilt-laced compliment, and I remembered how none of it had ever been acknowledged in public. I scrolled through old messages. In one, Sophia wrote, "If you don't help me now, people will think I'm just some broke bride." I whispered out loud, "You are just some broke bride." And I realized no one had ever actually asked me how I was. No one had asked if I was happy or in love or tired or lonely. Not once. They didn't care about me, only what I provided. The day before the dinner, I called the caterer, the florist, the lighting tech, the volatile booked under my company name. I confirmed all payments, all invoices. I made sure everything would be perfect. But I also made one final change. I moved my seat from the far end of the table to the direct center across from Sophia. It was small, symbolic quiet, but it was mine. The spark had been lit. The flame was rising, and by tomorrow night it would set everything on fire. The evening sun turned gold as guests filled my parents' garden, transformed into something out of a bridal magazine. Soft jazz played under twinkling lights. White roses lined the pathway. Servers in tuxedos glided between groups with trays of chilled champagne. It was flawless, a flawless lie. Adrian's family arrived first, warm, polished, polite. His mother complimented the flowers. His father clapped my dad on the back and said, "You folks sure know how to throw a party." I stood near the center of the table watching it all unfold. Everyone was where they were supposed to be. Sophia flitted from group to group in a pearl gray gown I'd paid to have flown in from Barcelona. She was radiant tanned, entirely unaware that the night was hers only in decoration because the narrative was about to change. Dinner came. Laughter swelled. Toasts began. My father stood up first. His voice was firm. Practiced, he was always the showman at family events. "To my daughter, Sophia," he said, lifting his glass, "and to Adrian, may your lives be as beautiful as tonight." Cheers. Applause. Then Sophia rose. The patio went silent. She held her glass high, smiling wide, her voice syrupy sweet. "To the Duarte family," she said. "To love, to legacy, to everything we've built together." Her eyes found mine across the table. She didn't blink. "And to everyone at this table," she added with a dramatic pause, "except for Elena Failure, who only has money." Laughter exploded around her. Sharp, cruel. My father chuckled, raising his glass again. My mother leaned toward a guest and whispered something behind her napkin. A few cousins laughed awkwardly, unsure if this was rehearsed or just reality. Adrian looked dazed. He hadn't expected this, but he didn't stop it either. I didn't flinch. Instead, I stood slowly, deliberately. I lifted my glass, waited for the laughter to subside. To the failure, I said, my voice calm, cutting through the evening air like a blade. A few people looked up, startled. Sophia's smile faltered. To the failure, I repeated, "Who has paid for this entire night? The flowers, the champagne, the dress you're wearing, the chairs under your guests, the food on every single plate." Silence, I continued. To the failure who funded Sophia's business twice received nothing in return. To the failure who paid Dad's hospital bill, who covered Mom's flights to every doctor appointment, she couldn't be bothered to schedule herself. To the failure who has been the family's invisible backbone for over a decade. Eyes widened, heads turned. Sophia's mouth opened, but nothing came out. I wasn't finished. To the failure, I said, placing my glass gently on the table, "Who will no longer be paying for your wedding?" Then I sat down. No yelling, no tears, just silence. The kind of silence that chokes, that stings, that echoes. My mother's face went ghost pale. My father blinked, stunned. Adrian looked at Marina like he'd just discovered she was a stranger. And Sophia, she was frozen. The silence was broken only by the clink of someone nervously setting down a fork. I stood again one last time. "Enjoy the evening," I said. "It's the last one you'll have on my tab." Then I turned and walked out of the garden. The heels I wore clicked against the stone path like a clock ticking toward midnight. No one followed me. Not that night. Not ever again in the same way. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already vibrating. 6 missed calls. 3 from Mom, 1 from Dad, 2 from Sophia. I let them ring. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't replay the scene like some guilty confession. I sat in silence on my couch, barefoot, staring at the ceiling of my apartment, a home I bought with my own money earned from 16-hour days, 2:00 a.m. client calls, and weekends sacrificed for other people's weddings. I had never felt so alone. But for the first time in years, I wasn't scared of that feeling. By morning, I had 47 unread messages. Mom. Elena, you made a scene. Adrian's family is humiliated. Sophia. I was joking. God, why are you so dramatic? Dad, you better fix this before people start asking questions. Then came the threats. Sophia, if the wedding's ruined, it'll be your fault. Everyone will know. Mom, you broke your father's heart. His blood pressure is spiking. Are you trying to kill him? Dad, don't forget everything we've done for you. Done for me. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened my laptop and began gathering receipts. Every transfer, every invoice, every proof of payment, painfully organized over years of blind loyalty. I made a spreadsheet titled, "What I Paid for Love." I stared at it half laughing. When I scrolled to the bottom, the number blinked back at me like a final insult, $132,845. That was the real cost of belonging. But the fallout wasn't just financial, it was relational. By the end of the week, my name had been quietly slandered through the family grapevine. A cousin texted, "Heard you snapped," people saying you ruined Sophia's future. I didn't respond. I was tired of explaining my humanity to people who only saw my utility. Adrian's family, however, didn't stay silent. A week later, Sophia called, sobbing. "They're calling off the wedding," she said. "You destroyed everything. You happy now?" I didn't say a word. I let her sit in the silence she once laughed through. But the worst blow came from Aunt Rosaron of the few relatives I thought had always understood me. She messaged, "I thought you were stronger than this, Elena. You should have just smiled and kept the peace." That's when it hit me. They never saw my silence as kindness. They saw it as permission. Not anymore. I forwarded all communication to my lawyer the next morning. I didn't want revenge. I wanted a boundary. And this time, it would hold. I thought the worst had already happened. I thought the betrayal ended at Sophia's toast, but I was wrong. It started with a shoebox in the back of my storage closet. I was digging through old document stacks, forms, property files, past event receipts for my lawyer when I stumbled across it. Inside were envelopes, letters, and a thin binder labeled "College Planning Grandma Jean." My heart sank. My grandmother had passed away when I was 17. She was the only one in the family who ever saw Mano just as the smart one or the helper, but as Elena, she used to send handwritten notes with small checks. "This is for your dreams, baby girl, not for anyone else." I opened the binder. Tucked inside were bank slips, correspondence with her lawyer, and one shocking page, a notarized instruction to leave a trust in my name 350 from the sale of her rental cabin in Colorado, intended solely for my college tuition and relocation costs. I never saw a cent of it. Instead, I remembered Mom telling me, Grandma didn't leave much, just some knickknacks and memories. I remembered Dad saying, we had to sell the cabin quickly to cover some family debt. It wasn't worth keeping. Now I knew the truth. They sold it. They took the money, and they never said a word. I sat on the floor for nearly an hour staring at that paper, not just stunned by the theft, but by the eraser. They had stolen my grandmother's final gift, her legacy, her way of saying, I believe in you. And they used it to pay off a credit card. I called my lawyer immediately. When I showed her the binder, she didn't even hesitate. You have a case, she said. This is documented misappropriation of inheritance funds. A few days later, she sent a formal letter to my parents. It wasn't threatening. It was precise. We outlined the funds, the legal documents, and the timeline. We requested a full accounting of the trust and demanded restitution, or we would pursue a civil claim. They didn't reply, but I heard from Sophia. She left me a voicemail voice trembling with forced calm. Elena, I didn't know about the trust. Okay, don't punish me for their mistake. Just don't take this further. You'll destroy what's left of the family. I didn't respond because it wasn't me who destroyed it. It was them, when they chose money over memory, image, over integrity. That moment holding that paper, I realized something deeper than anger. They hadn't just stolen money. They had stolen my right to know that someone once fought for me. But now I was fighting for myself, and this time I had proof. It's been 18 months since that dinner, 18 months since I stood up, lifted a glass, and shattered the illusion of what my family was, what I thought it was. The legal case moved slowly but surely. My lawyer filed a formal complaint regarding the misappropriated inheritance. We never had to go to court. My parents, likely fearing public embarrassment more than justice, settled quietly. I recovered just over 35+, a written acknowledgement that the trust had been redirected inappropriately. They called it a miscommunication. I called it theft. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was emotional. I no longer wake up with a pit in my stomach when I see a message from my mother. I no longer scan every family event invitation wondering how much they'll ask for this time. I no longer sit at the far end of any table trying to shrink myself into silence. I redecorated my apartment, took down the old family photos, not out of spite, but for space to breathe, to build something that reflected me. On one wall now hangs a framed copy of Grandma Jean's note. This is for your dreams, baby girl, not for anyone else. It reminds me that once someone believed in me without condition. I don't talk to Sophia anymore. She tried first with anger, then with guilt, and finally with guilt disguised as nostalgia. Remember when we made blanket forts in the living room? You're still my sister, but I miss you. Led back to another ask. Help with a lease, co-sign a business loan, just a little support while I get back on my feet. Every olive branch came with a price tag. I declined all of them. My boundary wasn't temporary. It was permanent. My parents, they pretend nothing happened. They still send out family Christmas cards with me cropped out. I hear they tell people I'm just busy with work. That's fine. Let them tell whatever story they need to sleep at night. I sleep just fine. And my business, it's thriving. When I stopped pouring money into people who never appreciated it, I invested in my staff, in better tools, in myself. We booked 2 international events this year. We're expanding into New York. I've started seeing someone too. His name is Daniel. He's a structural engineer who restores historic buildings. He's quiet, grounded, and the first person who has ever told me, you don't have to earn my respect, you already have it. Sometimes I still feel the echo of it all, the silence at that table, the ache in my chest, the years I spent trying to buy their love. But then I remember the strength it took to say enough to walk away, to become my own advocate, to toast to myself. Because I'm not the failure. I was just the only one willing to carry everyone else. And when I stopped, the whole illusion collapsed. So here's my final toast. To the girl who thought love had to be earned, to the woman who learned it never did, to the freedom that cameo from being loved by the wrong people, but from finally loving myself enough to walk away. Cheers, Elena. You saved yourself, and you didn't owe them anything.